Hello, wonderful
Hey,
people.
you guys. Oh my gosh, there's so many already. Woohoo. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting, you guys. Okay, so I'm so thrilled that Walter came on with me because the very first thing I ever read of Walter's was like mind blowing to me.
Ah,
I, Walter, for real, like he talked about his family and the dysfunction in his family, but in such a beautiful way. And for a non-psychologist, it was better than most psychologists. So I was just like mind blown immediately.
okay.
Neuro. So anyway, um, let's go. Let's start talking about how to survive the holidays with our families. Hi, Nikki. What do you think, Walter? Are you going to see your family this year?
I'll see my mom, and that's about it. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while. It kind of came down. Hello, all the wonderful people. But yeah, I mean, my disconnect with my family happened a long time ago, and we used to do these big family gatherings where everybody would get together and just kind of run each other down. And then it just got to be the point where I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to go to these anymore. And I was going to tell people today, one of the things that went through my mind is number one, they always make you feel as if you should apologize for standing up for integrity, like somehow just that idea is going through your head is something wrong with you. So you should never apologize for that. But the other thing that you need to recognize is the power of just getting up and leaving, because they're going to tempt you. They're going to try to hit you with that. I mean, they're going to say something inappropriate, and then they'll either be nothing, or they'll say you overreacted, or there'll be some sort of a halfway apology. But you just say, nope, unacceptable. These are my boundaries. I'm leaving. And that just shatters the whole dynamic of these abusive relationships. And I think they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to stand up and have that power. And actually, I did that with my family, and they never talked to me again. And it turned out, though, that it's like, fine, I'm establishing this boundary. I have to be treated a certain way. If you don't meet that standard, you're gone. And it's like, it's their choice to not be in your life. And that's just, I always try to tell that to people. You'll find your tribe, you'll find your people. They'll treat you a lot better than your family does.
Okay, this is exactly what happened with my family this year. So this is like my first like Christmas with no family. Like because yeah, I set the boundary and they just lost their shit. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was just like, we're done with you. Like you're nuts. Like, yeah, I love it when they call the person who sets a boundary the crazy person. I mean, no,
Oh boy, boy, yeah, yeah.
come for the woman and call her crazy. It's so original. I can't anymore.
And with me too, it's like they know I have an immigrant family, and there's been all this talk too. Oh, we've got to reach to the other side. We got
I
to see
wanted to
what's
ask
going.
this.
Well, yeah, and this is the new thing because I mean, it's like I was doing that for all these years, and I had people that the ones that were still talking to me, my family, they met my kids, they met my wife, and they still, and so the people who sit there and tell me that I'm too, oh, you're being too harsh, you're just going to drive them away. It's like, no, I was not too harsh. I let them into my house. They met my family, they met my kids, and they still voted for their extermination, and they don't think that they did that. When I mentioned it to them, that's what you did. Oh, come on, you're being too harsh. Your acts have consequences. And making a tab on a ballot, making a mark on a ballot, you're signing a death warrant by doing that. Not my life. And that's it. And it's just sort of like, so I get really kind of frustrated too. I mean, so much of everything we do, it's this boundaries, and it's in the media too. And it's all these pressures we get on
Oh,
social media and everything we write and in the comments you receive. And so many people are just repeating things that they have heard from other sources. But I mean, it's I've actually lived it. And you can't have people like that in your life.
well, to me, it's like just watching this like byline of behavior of abuse. It's the same. The reason I came on here is because I was starting to see this in my family. And so Trump was just triggering the shit out of me because I realized that this is going on in my family. And,
Yeah.
and yes, when you see it done to your children,
Yeah.
that was when I was like, this is so unacceptable. Like, why are you doing this to your grandkids? Honestly,
Mhm.
uh, a couple of years ago, we went to see one part of my family, and this is the Christian nationalist side of my family that are MAGA. and they told me this was the first time when they told me that Trump was sent by God,
Yeah.
and I was like, yes, to test you and you're failing. But my son, literally, my son who is LGBTQ, and he was quite small then. I think he was only 13. He literally like stomped on my foot. It was like, shut up, woman. Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. But yeah, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. There was a lot of smiling and nodding. And it's so funny because I went on here to look at some of the advice that a lot of people gave about what to do for the holidays, and it's all pretty funny. I don't
Oh,
know.
great.
There was there was one on here about the people who aren't seeing their families, and and it was like 57 people and what they were going to do when they weren't going to see their families. So that's a
Oh,
good one.
wow. So this is
So
all
setting
relatively,
boundaries.
yeah. But this is relatively new for you then. This is the first year you're not going to be with that group of people, or
It's the whole family now. I mean, my family, there's divorce in the family, so every holiday has always been super stressful anyway, because you've got to go see this side of the family, and then you got to go see this family, and then you got to see this family, and they're all pissed because you didn't stay long enough, and they're mad that you're seeing the other family. You
yeah,
know, so it's always been sort of a pain in the ass anyway. So in a way, I'm feeling kind of liberated that
yeah,
I don't have to mess with that now. I
yeah,
mean, it's a pain in the ass every year, so I'm
yeah.
kind of glad.
But isn't it the pressure that we're supposed to feel, it's just kind of inherent to the holidays? And why is it? I mean, this pressure that we feel, they're always these awful people somehow. I was talking about with Bob Dana. It's like, why do they always think that they're the champions of decency? They're always so awful. They always try to shame us and make us feel bad. And it just is so many things in our society kind of funnel into that. And it's the same mechanism that allowed the most repugnant human being in all of human history to be appointed to the seat of most terrible power in the world. It's like all these mechanisms that just compel us. It's like we're not allowed. Like our gross old uncle, everybody knows what I mean when I say that. He's allowed to push boundaries. He's allowed to groom the children at the holiday table. And we're supposed to just like brush off his sexually inappropriate innuendos that he makes. We're supposed to just brush that off. But if we say, gee, it's like maybe there should be accountability for child rapists. Everybody freaks out. And we're the ones that are silenced. These guys can come visibly drunk, they can be groping your kids. Nothing is ever said to them. You try to stand up for actually people that, are oppressed and impoverished, and you're the bad guy. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know how that
Oh
happened.
my God, Walter, that uncle's terrible. Holy shit, I thought I had it bad.
Well, I mean, a lot of people know what I mean. They've had that. That's a trope. It's a trope, like it's a stereotype in our society. That gross old. I mean, they
The
don't
creepy uncle.
consider it grooming, but that's the way they talk. They're showing just they're these people that are just terrible. you know, that's
I
like the salt of
mean,
the earth. Yeah.
the N word was frequently dropped at the table
Oh,
at Christmas with us. Yeah, and, yes. To me, what it feels like, and this is sort of like that first work of yours that I read, because you were kind of discussing the narcissism in your family. You were talking about your dad,
hmm
the dynamic with your father, and I just identified with it so much. But what I see with Trump too is like this need to dominate, and it comes. It's just like somebody wants to have power over you constantly, and that is always this pattern of abuse that and that is what you were saying. Like if you don't set this boundary, then they have this need and it just doesn't subside. And then they start doing it to your kids, and you're like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? That's a child
Yeah.
over there. Like,
Oh. And what they'll do is, and they undermine your authority with your kids, and
oh
they
yeah,
try to create conflict. So that it's always, and it's just one of those things. And I was going to write an article about this too, because people pressure you. Oh, you only have one father, or you only have one family. But, and over the years, I've tried to have these reconnections, but I keep adjusting my glasses because they look crooked somehow. So I
I
don't know how
got
to
mine
fix
too.
them.
I think my headphones are messing them up. I don't know.
But I was going to say, I've tried to go back to them, and they just start because they know what buttons to push because they've been with you since the
Exactly.
beginning. So they have no right to get through to you. And their first thing that they have to do to get power over you is to break you down. And we see this in families and we see this in the government. I mean, they're the same parallel thing. It's the whole white supremacy ideology. They need to make everybody economically desperate so they don't even have time to read through all the Epstein files when they drop. They don't even have time to recognize all the lies they're being told that are repeated. It's rote memorization. They just try to program us with all these lies as they take over the media. And so when people say it's like, well, why can't you just give your family 2 hours? It's only 2 hours a year, but they can cause so much harm to your kids in those 2 hours. Those people that, unless you're, and even if you're there moderating everything that's said to your kids, they can attack their self-esteem because for control, they have to crush your self-esteem. They have to crush your relationship. They'll whisper to your kids individually, get them fighting against each other, get you fighting with your wife. They're able to do all this harm in such a short amount of time. And if you call them out on it, they're going to call you ridiculous. They're going to say that you need to go get your head examined, that you need counseling,
You're
and that
crazy.
it's
Yeah.
gas. All those things happen. And it is not worth it. And we need this part of the argument to be out there. Please, people, if you have that inner sense that says, I do not want to go to this meeting, don't go. Say you just call if you need an excuse. I woke up, I had a fever this morning. I can't come. Maybe it's COVID. I'm gonna make everybody sick. You have all kinds of excuses not to go if you don't want to be direct. And just don't go because you have an inner sense that tells you, we have that subconscious mind, that instinctive part of us, the one that tells us not to go down the dark alley because it's like there might be danger there. That's what's telling you not to go visit your families. You should listen to that, have faith in that. They try to tell you to doubt yourself. You have no obligation. You have to take care of yourself first.
I wish I had met you sooner. Yeah, I mean, I just realized that this year. When my kids were born, that's when I started seeing it, and I guess that I just intentionally got really quiet and started smiling and nodding a lot, and just doing what I thought was the right thing to do because I needed my family to help me raise the kids. I knew I'm not married to the father of my kids. And I knew that I knew that that was going to be a challenging relationship. So I was really counting on my family. So I really just tolerated a lot of bullshit. And then when Trump like came in and I started watching his behavior, I'm like, God, this is the same thing. And if I am not approving of Trump's behavior, how can I approve of this in my family with my kids with my kids around? And so, yeah, in January, this last January after the election, was when I was just like, I've got to call these people out when this stuff is going on. And it really just ended maybe in October. The whole family
Yeah.
just on all sides, even parts of the family don't talk to each other. It took about a year and they're just like, we're done. We're not talking. They're not talking to me. I doubt we'll ever talk again over the things that
Yeah.
happened, recently.
Well,
So
yeah. And you shouldn't be too hard on yourself too, because again, we are all America grooms and condition us to be abused. Everything about this country
exactly.
does that from the beginning to the point where they tell us, it's the prosperity gospel. If we're not rich, it's because we're morally, awful or evil. We deserve to be punished. All these
You deserve
horrible
it.
things that are told. Yeah, and
I
so
believed that.
I
I
know my
believed I deserved it. I believed I wasn't doing something right, and I needed to try harder because that's the trope, right?
yeah,
you're not doing something. If you just were doing more or better, we would be okay with you. But they were never going to be okay. They're never going to be
yes,
okay. The game is to beat you down.
yep, and it's that promise, and that's the other thing about people like the president. It's easy to promise a future reward, right? He never intends to give any reward to anybody ever, and I found that in my family too. I've lived through this is all just the second time through all this for me with this presidency because I've seen this before. But it's easy to promise the world and then you say all you have to do is give a little bit more. All you have to do is work a little bit harder, and it's always, it's like the coach that implements a terrible game plan and you keep losing. But instead of the coach ever assessing that his game plan sucks, it's always the players, always the player. It's always you. If only you could do. Why are you? And it's somebody like this is bullshit, and it's like I got to get away from this. But then they come at you, and there's all those terms that everybody's heard. The flying monkeys, you've heard of that. The narcissists, because they do. They go around and whisper to all these other people. And because they're taking advantage of all that conditioning and that grooming, where people are like, oh, he's paying attention to me now. And so it's the love bombing aspect of it. You see that with the president too. He'll come out and love bomb and say all these positive things because they know how long they can push you, and then they have to give just a little bit, or at least promise to give again later down the road. They do that to all these other people, send all these other people after you. It collapses though. At some point, there's a collapse. I've seen it before in real life. We're going to see it again soon in this country, one way or another. And yeah, it's not pretty. At some point, there's a
Oh
collapse.
shoot! I just turned this up.
Oh,
Sorry.
you got the volume.
I did. I cursed
Just hit the
way on.
volume.
Okay, yeah. I turned on the computer. I hit the Substack thing. I was trying to find because I'll try to remember. I can't really find it, but it said that they had done research on last holiday, and what they saw was that if you were a Democrat and you were serving dinner, and your MAGA family came, that they were more likely to leave 70 minutes earlier than the year before or other
Okay.
times before, and then conversely, the Democrats would stay at the MAGAs, but 40 minutes. They would leave 40 minutes earlier. So I just also
Oh,
thought that the MAGA people wouldn't tolerate the Democrat dinner as much as the Democrats would tolerate the MAGA, but everybody left early anyway. So it's just sort of, I thought that it was a really funny statistic
yeah. Oh,
that we're
I don't know.
separated. I mean, we're separated because of politics. I mean, it's so sad.
Well,
But
it's because of morality is what we're separated by. I mean, it's just at
thank
this
you.
point, it's straight up that, and they try to make it about politics to avoid the issues. But I mean, at some point, yeah, it's like it's my family's life. I mean, we've been harassed the whole year. I sent that out in my Christmas letter, and there's a lot of people just,
Oh,
and that's what's going out to friends. I'm just like, look, I said to them, it's like it's been a horrible year. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not been a good year. Family gets harassed. The government is practicing ethnic cleansing. They're depriving people of their civil rights. Innocent people are being sent abroad and tortured. They're covering up for brutal child rape. Torture, child torture, and because all those kids, the ones that survives, they eventually, so many of them commit suicide afterwards. So all these things are out there. We're not supposed to talk about this stuff, and I've been just blatantly talking to everybody I meet about it. I think that's another big thing, because we're all subjected to this code of silence. We're just supposed to allow evil to just go free, and it's not polite. It's not polite for us to point it out. So I'll talk about it at basketball games. Yeah, I go to all these basketball games because I'm not going to let the secret police take my kids. And it's just like I'll see what people have to say, and it's like if I'll say it loud, all the people around me. We have to do it because they want us to be quiet. And silence helps the bad guys. The truth is always spoken, and so we just have to speak the truth. Start breaking down all these mechanisms that allow this kind of toxic behavior to never be held accountable.
this is why I wanted to speak with you. I mean, you were just like the healthiest male that I've ever met. I mean, really, I just want my kids to be just like you when they grow up. I'm always like, I told them, I hope they come on. I was like, come check out Walter. He's so amazing. Yeah. But what I found with my MAGA people too is that they refuse to go look at facts. And so
Yeah,
when I'll go talk with them and present them with facts, hey, Amy, they're just like the national security strategy. I was talking with them. I have a friend who came from Hungary. He fought against fascism in
yeah,
Hungary and came to America. And now he's a full Trump supporter. And I was trying to explain to him about the national security strategy. And he,
yeah,
absolutely refuses to go read it. Also did not watch the January 6th Commission, just refuse and don't
yeah.
have any concept of the Epstein files and think that it's all propaganda.
Yeah, part of that is, and it's really interesting. Thanks, Bees Free Verse. That's a nice comment. But part of that is because people who grew up abroad, they don't know all the dog whistles that are in the United States, because there's two dialogues at all times in the United States. That dialogue of white supremacy is hidden. And those of us who kind of managed to navigate it, and we never talk about the fact that the United States is, tormented by hate groups, white supremacist hate groups, and we just pretend they don't exist. I was talking with the opinionated ogre the other day, and you see all these news stories about crime and all these other things. They never mention that white people are the ones committing all the crimes. They're the ones shooting up all the schools. They're the ones most likely to be child abusers. Like it's just completely off the radar. People talk about crime, and
Most likely,
well, and what's hard is like rational
sorry,
people.
political
Yes.
violence.
And yeah, absolutely. And what happens is rational people, I'm figuring this out. I mean, this is a process. And so again, have grace with yourself. We try to just survive. We try to do the best we can. And so much of my life has been, oh, there's an obstacle. I'll just figure out a way around this obstacle, because in the United States there's just so many. So we have to kind of always navigating. And good people really in the United States haven't developed that impulse to say, you know what? No, that's unacceptable. We have to fight this because it just feels overwhelming. There's so many of them. And, yeah, like
Yeah.
prior to this year in your family, you were trying to make do. You were trying to, because we get so much pressure, like, oh, we have to stay in contact. And that gives all the power to them, because exactly as you said, they're not going to listen to us, and then, like I said, people from abroad, they don't know all the dog whistles that are spoken all the time in the United States, hidden lines like America first, and so many of their lines, the things they say, we just want to respect our venerated traditions. That sounds like if you just take the words, it's like that doesn't sound too bad. But it's like if you actually have done any reading and you realize that's KKK talk, like word for word, then you should be like, oh, we can't have that. And then you get other people like, Walter, why are you getting so mad about this? And you have to go through the history of indoctrination in the United States and explain this to people. So it is really complex. It's this big thing. And it's only been, I mean, my perspective changed again after the election, because I kept hoping, we'll get Kamala in there, then we'll be able to work through these problems, but in like kind of a reasonable manner. And all my other friends, my friend like Will Fullwood, he's just like, dude, she's gonna lose. He's like, the system has always been rigged. It's always been unfair. It's designed to put evil position people in positions of power. And so, like this year has been, a master class in learning all the mechanisms of evil in the United States. So hopefully now we have the power to dismantle them, or at least start. Know where our enemies are.
I was watching this Rachel Kushner, which is Jared's grandmother, and she did her whole oral history. I keep talking about it because if you guys haven't seen it, it is a must see. It's about 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and she discusses her whole oral history in the Holocaust. And the thing that just blew my mind, like psychologically, is that she kept, even though she'd witnessed these atrocities of the Nazis, there's just a natural human tendency for us to believe that it's not going to get worse. And so we're naturally hopeful, even when we're watching like the worst terrible things occur. And so, yeah, I mean, you're doing this with your family. I mean, I know I was doing it with my family, but it's like once you
Yeah.
see the pattern of abuse, it's almost impossible to unsee it. Like
Yeah.
you can't kind of like go back to just smiling and nodding anymore, or at least I can't. I mean, now that I'm like, this guy is doing this, and holy crap, my family's doing this too. This is just, I can't tolerate it. It's intolerable.
Yeah.
Dominating, controlling, manipulating, condescending. There's just always a need to keep somebody in their place. And it's like through judgment or, like my Jicama model, the aggression, it's either, physical aggression, sexual, financial, verbal, or just this, like severe judgment, like that you find a lot with like religious or that sort of thing. It's like a lot of judgment.
Yeah. And I just want to say that Judith, I think it was, I'm sorry, she says it's nice to
Sure.
see Judith Watson. She said, you're speaking facts as an African American. It's good to hear the truth. So that's a wonderful comment. I really appreciate that. And what you were just talking about, Kat, it's just the dynamics of control, and it's always the same sort of thing. The various ways that they oppress. I mean, we're seeing it now, the attacks on women. Somebody mentioned in a comment that, you know, college used to be free until women started going to college. And now, those they rise up to block them in that way. And just like all those, yeah, all those control mechanisms. I've been saying often, I mean, the weakest people in the world, and we overlook, there's always a breaking moment. And it's like most of us get to that point. You're in a bad job, and it's like, I'll just stay here. Maybe it'll get better. Because you have to hit that breaking point in order to have the impulse to actually leave. Because it's always scary to change and do something different. And that's another thing that these oppressive systems leverage is that our reluctance to change, our fear of the unknown. But I mean, you experience an extra way. It's like finally, it's like absolutely not. And the people saying it's going to get worse, and it's like, I guess it depends on, Yeah, we'll see. It can always get worse. And still right now, it's so easy for people to just go about their daily life and just kind of put their head in the sand, and they'll drive to work and maybe they'll recognize that groceries are a little more than they used to be. But in a lot of respects, our lives still kind of seem the same, until the Gestapo shows up in your town and starts beating people and you see that. And I think
Yeah.
once you've seen that, it can't be unseen. And I think more and more people are getting to that point. But yeah, there's a lot of fear. I'm hopeful for 2026, but afraid to.
I hope that people are saying it because it doesn't seem that way to me. It does seem like people are just sort of going on about their lives. They're still very confused why I'm like posting, 8 times a day, 12 times a day. Like,
Yeah.
look at this motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, what are you doing? You're obsessed. And I'm like, I'm trying to save my country. I'm trying to save our way of life. Like, what is wrong with you? And then,
Yeah.
some gay friends of mine, I posted on like an Austin, General Austin site, and I started posting, and they were furious. And I'm like, you're not even going to fight. And then I found out that Barry Weiss, I'd have no idea that she's in an LGBTQ marriage, and she's Jewish, and she's a woman. What are we doing, Barry Weiss?
Oh, you know, and I was just thinking too, because you said, if you're not going to, you're one of the things that they do, if we're not going to our family meetings, I think it's important that we are deliberate about telling the other people why we're not doing it. Because
Oh, you
as
do?
we were saying before, those narcissists, they're gonna whisper. They're gonna create this, you know, umbrella. It's like it's inappropriate to complain about other members of the family, but then the narcissist is like, "Hey, come here," and then they whisper about it. So I think it's just the
Oh, they
yeah,
undermine. They will undermine the shit out of you because if you do something to them and try to hold them accountable, they tend to have a huge nervous breakdown.
yes,
Rats
and
on
that
fire
and
is what I like to call them.
did you say that you had a background? What's your background in?
I'm a research psychologist. I mostly study personality disorder.
Okay, good.
That's like
Oh,
my
you made a nice
expertise in
compliment.
personality disorder.
Yeah, well, you said it was a nice compliment when you said when you liked my article about that. I
I
guess
was so much
we're
more
gonna.
introspective and thoughtful than most psychologists I know. Yeah, I just thought it was the most
Oh,
best thing I read. And I love your writing. It's just amazing.
oh, you're so sweet, and a lot of this is just just trying to survive and make sense of things. Like you're put in a situation, and I never blame people too much. Until you're about 10, you're just trying to survive. You get to about 20, and it's still just like you're trying to make sense of the world, but you got limited perspectives. And when I'm talking with Will Fullwood about these things, he always says, he's like, I don't blame people for being, indoctrinated with white supremacy because there's no other choice in the United States. And, it all compare. I mean, every time I write an article and I mention narcissists or narcissism in the title, just people flock to it because just underneath the surface, there's this awareness that that's what's going on, and they identify with. Once you lay it out, they see it. They have trouble when you assign it to people's name. I try to avoid just names. You're just talking about these strategies, and people hit that breaking point, and then we have to, once they are vulnerable, once they realize they need help, then they can help. We can help them, but really, until they get to that point themselves, we can't get them there. I don't know.
it's
There's also
it's
that
like
concept about
everything.
yeah. Well, there's that concept of narcissistic.
Addiction, same thing.
That's true. And like we were talking before, a couple years ago, I made voluntarily the decision to stop drinking. So then it was really easy. But had somebody told me to do it, I probably would have resisted, And it's just that sort of thing that's always there. But there's that concept, the concept of narcissistic collapse. And actually, maybe this is the root of what we're talking about here, because there's so much pressure. They keep telling us, well, we have to understand their perspective. And if you push back against them too hard, they're just going to be set in their ways. And that's absolutely the wrong advice for dealing with a bully ever. A bully is designed to mock empathy and they're designed to mock kindness. But if you put them in their place, you make them look a fool, You have to break them down. Once they've broken down, they've set aside that ridiculous structure of self-loathing that they build up to redirect all their self-hatred at others. That
On
has to
you.
be
Yeah.
torn down. And you don't have to feel any obligation to sit there and endure their vile. their attacks on you, which are reflections of all the evils they've put into the world. You don't have to tolerate that. And if that's what's happening at these holiday gatherings, doesn't matter if it's your mother or your kids or anybody, you don't have to tolerate that. You can always demand that people treat you with basic respect. And if they're not, you put them in their place. And when they come to you, hat in hand, actually sorry, legitimately sorry, and they're willing to not only prove it, but spend the rest of their life making up for the mistakes they made prior to that moment of awakening, then you welcome them. You don't welcome them a second before that. You don't let them persist in their self loathing delusion, this lie of a life that they've created.
See, I agree with that. And I was just reading Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan was in a cult. He was in the Moonies.
Oh,
And I was interested to see what he was saying. He wrote about Thanksgiving and dealing with the Thanksgiving holidays, but he always says is that never ever bring up the cult leader, and so never bring up Trump with these people because they immediately feel this need to defend. And that is sort of what happened with my family when they told me that Trump was sent by God. I mean, it was immediately like there was no answer that I could have said with unless I agreed with them that it wasn't going to go south. You know what I'm saying? Like but
yeah,
I think you're right. You need to confront this stuff. I mean, you
yeah.
take the almighty leader down. You meet the bully with more. That's where you fire with fire, if you ask me.
The best thing to do with that guy would be to like just depant him. And I mean, literally go up to him and pull his pants down and just like see how he'd react. And then honestly, but I mean, Kamala came so close to doing it, like in the debate, because she was humiliating him, and she kind of put the brakes on out of the sake of decorum. But if she'd have pushed a little harder and got him to completely break down on stage, that might have been the difference. But really, that's what people need. And so if you can't do it to him, the people you meet in life, you break them down. I mean, you got guys like Nick Fuentes who spews all this hatred against women, but then admits that he's a virgin. And it's just sort of like, gee, buddy, maybe you don't know what you're talking about then. Maybe you're self-loathing for your self-perceived failures, with being attractive to the opposite sex. Maybe that's what's coloring all your lies you're telling. You should ruthlessly mock him for something like that, especially if he's spending all of his life telling lies about women and making people hate women.
Walter, I hadn't even thought about it, but it just reminded me. Hillary really bothered me when Trump during the debate where he was like physically,
Yeah,
why didn't she
yeah,
like get off me or back up or something? I would not have tolerated that for 1 second. And the press
yeah,
corps, like they're so submerged. I mean, submissive. They just like, what, where are they asking questions? Like they're
yeah.
so, I, I don't get it.
I think it's a lot of it is because you've got a whole bunch of Ivy League educated people who have never had to deal with bullies. They've all had their private driver. They've all had a private chef at school. They've all had everything so easy. They've just never had to deal with this. It's like I was the one to get the crap kicked out of me in the bus until I fought back. And it was like, like the scene from A Christmas Story. I've had that moment,
That was
where
my, me
and
too.
that film is so accurate because it's like you're just like and you just take and you're not happy. I'm not happy about the times I've had to resort to violence, but you hit a moment where you're like, I'm gonna die unless I respond, and some part of you responds, makes you cry. It's not who you are, and you don't, but you're never attacked by that bully again. The once you stand up there, and then they're done. And that's what's been so frustrating about watching these last 10 years. All I have to do is stand up to these bullies. And it almost makes me want to go to these holiday gatherings. Just get in the face of everybody there. Just tell them that they're a liar. Oh, you think that guy's sent by God? Well, if you're wrong, you're going to hell. I think you're going to hell. I pray for your soul because I think you're going to hell because you've invested in the Antichrist. How do you not know that he is not the Antichrist? You get in their face until they cry. You break them down. And you shouldn't feel bad about it because they're supporting a guy. He's all over the Epstein files. These are the worst people in history that are in charge of the whole government. And a lot of the Republican Party, all these donors, all these awful human beings. We're supposed to be passive and kind to talk about that. They are brutal child rapists. They tortured little kids. They abducted children. They did all these just awful things. So much of the whole mechanism of our society builds right into that. We're supposed to go down and eat turkey with people that support that bullshit. I would step on the turkey. I would say, "Nope, I'm gonna ruin this whole thing. You guys all suck. Put your hands on me then." I've stood up to rooms full of people and said things like this because they are cowards when it comes right down to it. The whole MAGA contingent is coward. In saying that, everybody be safe. Be safe this holiday season. I don't want to get too
when
riled
all
up, but
when all this happened with my family, my youngest son, who just turned 16, he called these people. Oh, I don't know if you know, Walter, that my natural birth father died, and when he my his wife, and they're the Christian nationalists, and she wasn't letting us come see him while he was dying. And then when he died, she uninvited us to the funeral and then took us off the obituary because of my political beliefs. And, I've got kids, and she uninvited them to the funeral. So it was just like, what in the hell? But
yeah,
I just totally lost my train of thought.
no, it's okay. Yeah,
Oops.
it's a lot going on.
Well, I mean, the point is that here, when my son went to ask her and it would call her and text her, she would not respond. So you're exactly right. Like if you're going to hold them accountable, and you've got a kid trying to hold you accountable, and you can't even answer to a child why you just did something,
Yeah,
complete. They're just, yeah, they're pussies at the end of the day. I mean, it's just not
yeah.
like a normal. Bye, Cheech.
And I
Let
mean,
us on.
another I want to mention too is just like the aspect of the trauma bond. And I know that was the
Oh
case with my
yeah,
extended family because they were just they hated each other, but they were the only thing that they had. So they'd break each other
yeah,
down knowing that they would stay together. And that became like, haha, and it was just sort of like, and so for a long time, when I was 10 or till about 15, when I stopped going to these reunions, I just, oh, okay, they're running me down, but this is how they express affection, and I was like internalizing that. Like, okay, that's okay. But then I discovered that, I'd go into the world and I'd model that behavior with other people and I would hurt them. So I've
yeah.
discovered I was pushing people away by being like that. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. But once you and I always tell people, it's like we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, and the conscious mind programs the subconscious mind. And so we think of the world through our conscious mind, like the decisions we're deliberately making. But people have to deal with the subconscious part of you too. The part that drives home from work and doesn't even think about the drive. Other people have to be confronted with that. And so when you've programmed your subconscious mind to be just hateful and evil all the time, you might be spewing hatred to people and not even be aware of it. In the same way that you just drive home from work without knowing what you're doing. You're doing these complex tasks. So, and it's just like the idea of like quitting drinking. It took me about 3 months. I've heard this is pretty common where you change your habits. And that's that deliberate
Yeah.
process, that conscious mind. You have to be on it. It's exhausting. Your conscious reprogramming of yourself. Oh, I came home. Rather than grab a beer, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea so I have something to drink. And it takes like 3 months. And then once you've established that in your subconscious mind, oh, then it's easy now. You're not even asking for beer at restaurants anymore. It just never happened. And the same thing is true with this hate conditioning. But if you're living in a household and you're trying to quit drinking, but everybody else is like leaving beer bottles around all the time and handing you a beer all the time, it's impossible to reprogram your subconscious mind so you become a decent person. So that's why you have to cut off these awful people because it's like you're trying to make progress at yourself and you go to these horrible family reunions and then all of a sudden like 2 months of progress is wiped out because they reestablish you to that old
Yeah.
line of thinking. Go
Wow,
ahead.
you're blowing my mind because no, it's like an addict. You're talking about it, your relationship and like an addictive quality. And yeah, you're exactly right because it is something that's bad for you, but you still stick with it because it's a
Yes.
habit. Yeah, it
Yes.
is exactly the same thing. And yeah, you do stick with the devil you know instead of like the devil you don't. If you don't want to go out and try something new, you're like, well, it could be even worse if I was just
Yep.
totally alone. Well, I'm totally alone here, and I'm here to say I'm okay. I literally
Oh,
psychologically am okay. I feel okay. I mean, it sucks, but the reality is I also can't tolerate this bullshit anymore. So I'm fine. I'd rather be alone. You know,
yeah. Well, it's better to
I
be
really would.
alone.
And
It's better
okay,
to be
yeah.
alone than be in bad company. But I see people walking around in the background. Are you at a airport or something? I thought maybe
Yes, I'm
you're
at
not
the airport.
entirely
No,
alone.
it's like a tennis club. It's
Oh,
like a
okay,
tennis
okay.
club.
I've
Yeah,
I've
and
spent
this is
but you've got kids though, you said, right? So you're not gonna be
yeah.
alone entirely, so and I've spent holidays yeah, I mean, I've spent holidays entirely by myself at times, and it's like it's just a different thing. And it's like if you just have to embrace what the new thing is going to be. You can't look back. And if it gets really hard, I mean, it's like leaving a relationship you knew was bad, and you're always going to have a moment where you're like, "Gee, maybe that wasn't so bad." And then you have that relationship again. Oh, nope, I remember. But the other thing about what you're saying about addiction is hatred is intoxicating, right? Hatred gives you that
It's addictive.
illusion of power. And I always say to people, like, it takes all this effort to build something. So then a hateful person can come along and destroy it. They're like, see how powerful I am, right? And they feel better because they destroyed it. But lost in that mix is that they don't develop those skills to build anything. They can't do it. And they're also afraid to build things because it's like now it's vulnerable. Now they're afraid of meeting somebody like them who'll crush it too. But the weird part is they covet that. They covet the construction. And we see that with the president. Because he can't build anything. He has no skills. He has no abilities. And we see this with white supremacy. They try to claim the achievements of others as their own because they're incapable of building anything, right? And so what we have to look to is like number one, we have to be willing, we have to understand that it's the process, it's the ability to create that is the good thing. Hello. It's the ability to create that's a good thing. And so we have to be willing to relinquish the things that we could create. We have to, because if we build something and we want to preserve that, we give power to the hateful who can crush it, right? We have to say, go ahead and crush it then, destroy it. I can build it again, you can't. And that's where the power has to be. And so it's that's that idea of,
Good
life
point.
is suffering, ownership is impossible. You have to give up on all those things. And that's all I mean, the whole United States, the psychology of the United States, because all we do is covet things in this country. All we do is more materialistic. How much can I own? And we use profit to justify everything. We have to
Well,
completely change our mindset. Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. I mean, to me, it seems like, at least in upper white middle class, because that's where I grew up, so that's kind of all I know. Well, at least for growing up. But appearances are a huge part of it. And
Yeah,
I'm doing all this research on the Kushners and like all this hate. Like I just was reading all this research about the dopamine rush that you get from hating, and it's such a
yeah,
huge part of the brainwashing that we've been a victim of because. To keep this brainwashing and propaganda going, you have to have this element of hate, this dopamine rush, because it is
yeah,
addictive. So they look for this, and they want to keep it going, and they want to keep it going in their relationships, and that's why you just said it. We do it in our family units, and they
yeah.
keep this dynamic going, and it feels like power, it feels like control, but it's just an illusion. It's all optics. It's not based in anything that's substantial that actually means anything.
Yep. They what they do is they cultivate self-hatred within you and then teach you to project that self-hatred on others.
Exactly.
I mean, it all starts with, everyone's a sinner. That's where this begins, and that's part of I don't know if that can ever productively be used for good. Calling everybody a sinner, I think that's you look at an innocent baby that's just been born, and you're like, that's a sinful baby. That makes no sense whatsoever. We have to remove that because it is that's grooming. It grooms people to feel self-loathing. There's something wrong with me.
Walter,
Yeah,
that is what happens, you guys. When I didn't have kids till I got pregnant when I was 38 with my first child. And when I brought my baby home, my mother, he was crying and she was like, "Oh, he's got your number. He is totally manipulating you. He knows what to do to you." And I'm like, he's either hungry, tired, or he shit himself. Like, what's wrong with you? She literally believed that he was manipulating me as a baby. I'm like, did you think I was doing that? Yeah, she did.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Little things become. I mean, it's self-programming is so important, and I've been urging everybody to you got to practice gratitude. I mean, you have to be mindful. If you go through your day just mad about everything, it just compounds. And we have to find things to be grateful, even now, especially now
Yeah.
when everything is so difficult. Find something to find joy and be deliberate about that. And again, use your conscious mind to program your subconscious mind and just find joy in the world a little bit. But then put aside all those lies because everybody wants to belittle us. They want to play on our insecurities. The whole world is that, oh, we're not attractive enough, we're not smart enough, we're not successful enough. No, everything's good. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things. I want to ask, are there any other particular things you wanted to ask about? I tend to prattle on and on.
No, prattle away. I can listen to you all day.
Oh, that's
No, I mean, you're just like sparking all these thoughts, but I just can listen to you all day.
oh, good.
What was I going to say? Yeah, we keep going because I keep popping up like ideas of things I want to say, and then I forgot. I keep forgetting because you just are, you're talking about so many amazing like aspects of stuff that I think about all the time.
Oh, it
Oh,
isn't at all?
that's what I was going to
Well,
say. I
go ahead.
remember now. What I do, I have, it's really cute that you just said that because I've been taking pictures. I walk my dog in these huge fields that are where I'm staying. And I've just, there's these little tiny flowers all around. And I'll just get down in the portrait and just go take pictures of these little flowers. And I'm like, it's the little things. Like, really, I'm like looking at these little things is bringing me so much joy. But the other thing that has always worked for me in psychology and being healthy is just being honest with myself. You know, you'll never be honest with anybody else until you're honest with yourself first. And to me, the best way to do that is through journaling. You know, and just even if you're having some sort of writer's block, there's no such thing. There's Ernest Hemingway, like that's what I realized. He had the best, like he said, just start writing about your surroundings. You know, round table, black top, brown chairs. God, that guy was an asshole yesterday. You know what I mean? It just goes into somewhere else. So there's no such thing. You just start writing and it will start to come out and just focus on yourself, you know, how you're feeling and what's going on in your interactions in the world. And like you said, and then if you're angry at all, that stuff comes out. And then you take the power out of it, I think.
Absolutely. And that's basically where all my writing comes from. trying to make sense, trying to make sense of all these things and reimagining things that happen. Because I mean, the way when I was 10, when I was 20, I perceived my life as 10 different than I did when I was 30. So your own life of experience changes as you gather more experience and have a better understanding of who you are. You can revisit the things you did. You can see, oh, that person who said this thing that hurt me, now I see that that wasn't their intent. So it is good to go through your own life and just kind of reassess. But one of the things I found that really helped me early on, um, to kind of separate toxic people from good people in my life, the people that were worth keeping around, is that it's accountability. And it's really hard because to the toxic mindset, accountability, admitting guilt, admitting fault is perceived as a weakness. So they teach you
It
not
is
to do that.
not.
The self loathing
Lie to
mindset
you
teaches
die.
you. Yeah. And so I had to learn this. And I thought to myself, well, how do I practice accountability but not like just completely surrender? And so I started doing this approach where when I got into a conflict with somebody, I would reevaluate it and I would find some percentage of it. I could be like, okay, I would assign a percentage. I'm like, I think that conflict was 7% my fault and 93% that other person. But I'm like, but I'm going to be accountable for my part. I'm going to be accountable for the part that I did wrong. And so then you just you don't tell all this. It's like, I made this calculation. I think you were, instead, you just go to them and say, I apologize for this part of that conflict. This is the part I did wrong. And I found almost immediately this is what happens. Some people will say, "Oh, well, that's nice. I apologize for this part," and then you can kind of okay. Then you're going your interaction and you're kind of restored equilibrium. Those are the people you keep. Other times you say, "I apologize for this part of that conflict." They say, "I'm glad you apologized. I hope you learned your lesson, but that does illustrate a flaw in your character. You need to work on that." And those are the people you jettison, and they're really surprised too because you come up to them and you say, "I apologize for this part," and they think, "Okay, now I've got him. They've submitted to my control," and then they try to pressure you, and then you say, "Nope, I just had to do my say. I did my, but I think you were wrong too. You're gone. This is over." So it blows their mind, but that's how you might start making progress. It really worked for me early in the early days. So people having
Do
conflicts with
that.
your family, you can try that.
They do that. They ask that you do that in recovery. You
Oh,
always keep your side of the street clean. So you admit, we admitted for the first two words of the 12 steps. So you admit yourself, but yeah, you also need to hold other people accountable. But when you're being honest, then your side of the street gets real clean real quick and stays clean. So it's really easier to see and you can own your part without just like falling down and dying because you have a real perspective of who you are and what you really believe in. And I think when people start being honest with who they really are, you stop kind of you realize you're not as bad as you always thought you were. We're
Yeah.
really not that bad. You know,
Yeah. And it's yeah, a lot of you surround yourself with other people and yeah, you can and that was another thing I did in my life when I moved to Peru after I finished college and I just was like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go someplace where people don't know me. I can start again. I'll see
love
what
it.
their assessment is of me. And then you're able to just come in, oh, okay. But it is so hard. And the other thing you mentioned that I wanted to get back to was another big choice I made in my life was I was gonna take my actions, everything was gonna be in terms of what would most help my kids. I'm not gonna appeal to people in, the older generations, not as important. I'm gonna think forward. I'm gonna help my kids, do what I think is right for them. And if it requires cutting people out of my life, that's what I'm gonna do. But ultimately it's always for them. And we're pressured even to put our kids in harm's way to appease this belief that we have to, respect these awful human beings in our life that only do anything better. And so it's like it's pretty easy once you get it into that, you put it in that, but they once you put it in that context, it's easier to make that decision. But they disguise it, and it's just like all the information that we're subjected to is disguised. I'll have people that write comments, and it's like that's a deceitful argument. But if you are not educated in, the language of manipulation, it would seem like it makes sense. It gets back to saying things like, "We just want to protect our way of life." That sounds reasonable until you realize that the dog whistle for white supremacy, then you realize it's bad. But it's all a hidden
That's do
disguise, and they're very good.
Yeah, when you're protecting your way of life, that means you're disrespecting somebody else's way of life.
Yeah.
Usually that's what that
Yeah.
means. Yeah,
And overlooking the criminals and stuff that I mean, they pretend to stand for law and order and then they elect a felon. I mean, and then we're not supposed to talk. Oh, and then they just instantly dismiss it. The facial expressions you get from them, there's so much to just diagram. I've been working about on it with Will, and we just like setting people up. But we don't teach people, we don't teach kids how to recognize when they're being groomed or how to recognize indoctrination. That's not part of really our educational system, and we need to start
that's
doing
so
it. 'Cause-
true.
yeah,
That is so true. And yeah, that's what I'm realizing is that um, with my kids, I am having a lot of guilt because I did like go back home. I went back home with my mother, who I knew was abusive, and then she kind of manipulated me into taking care of her because she was petrified to go into the old folks' home. And anyway, so I feel like I did a lot of things I thought I was supposed to do for the kids, and then um, as things started getting weirder politically, because we were in private parochial schools, so it got weird for us really quick, especially when one of my kids was starting to think that he was you know gay, and we were
yeah,
in a Catholic school. He was starting to get picked on. It just started getting real ridiculous. I just started pulling them in really close and just getting really quiet and just sort of watching around. And yeah, I wish I had a little more balls and stood up, because now my kids are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You have no idea. I'm doing this for you. I really am. I'm totally doing this for you." Because they learned that you should just be quiet and smile and nod and, make sure everybody's okay. And I'm like, "No, you guys, that was wrong that I did that. Like, that was wrong."
yeah. Well, yeah, and have grace with yourself. I mean, we're all at different stages. We learn these things, and they're not easy
Exactly.
things to figure out. And we're always doing our best, but then there's that moment. And I mean, it's natural enough. Like you're in a relationship, like, and you have kids. Let's try to make this work. That's there's nothing wrong with that impulse. And then you finally get to the point where it's like, I tried everything. This isn't going to work. I got to leave. And so then your kids are like, well, why'd you make me endure that? And it's like, well, I realized I was wrong. And this is another thing I've had to do in my life because my father never once recognized fault, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to recognize fault when I'm because it's like I'm a full grown man and I've got these children, so it's only the doing the right thing. I mean, they're not going to physically make me apologize, right? But it's sort of like, so it's like you have to recognize, because it goes through my head. It's like, why would I apologize? It's like, because one day they are going to be stronger than me. That's another thing. It's the right thing to do. And also, I want to model for them, the right behavior. But even going through all that thing and the times that I've been wrong and I've said that I was wrong, I'm sorry. It was hard to do it the first time, and I've gotten better at it and I'm happy to do it. Um, and it makes a stronger relationship. But I mean, it's like anytime you're trying something for the first time, I mean, going into raising my kids, I had all these ideas of what I wasn't going to do, and that was mainly that was mainly directing, and it's all just worked out so well. But it's going against, like you were saying, every time people are like, "Watch out for the terrible twos." It's like, well, that's a lie. You know, every
Talking
year,
about what you
every
know
month
too
older.
either.
Yeah, it's like they always get better and better and better, their relation, and so there's just so much pressure for us to attack our kids. And you see these, parents where it's like they model your behavior. So if your kids are sarcastic, it's because you talk to them with sarcasm. If they don't apologize for
Completely.
mistakes, it's because you never apologize for mistakes. If they don't put on their seatbelt in the car, it's because you didn't put on your seatbelt in the car. So it's like it's just so much easier to model the behavior you want to see in your kids. Nobody does it. Almost nobody does it. That's the real tragic thing. And that's how we ended up
You're
with this
exactly right.
horrific man child as the, most awful person in the universe as our, in charge of everything and destroying
Well,
everything.
again, it's like you're supposed to project this image of who you're supposed to project an appearance without actually being that thing. You know,
Yeah.
do as I say, not as I do is it's just ridiculous. That doesn't work.
Maybe that's an interesting tactic you could use. Which I mean, if you wanted to mess with your family a little bit or try other things,
Andrea.
just hold up their hypocrisy. It's like, well, let's go help some, and here's what because the Bible's pretty clear about what you're supposed to do about helping people. You're supposed and the immigrant. You're supposed to help the immigrants. Jesus himself was an immigrant. He fled to Egypt. I don't think he had a visa, right? So he did. He
Right.
crossed the border illegally, and so maybe
He's
that's
an
something you can
immigrant.
bring up. Let's see how
Exactly.
they
He was
react.
Jewish. He was an immigrant. I mean, he
Palestine,
probably
yeah,
wasn't white.
all of it.
Come on. Yeah, exactly.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, no, it's not easy though, and I guess the topic: how do we deal with these toxic family members? And I guess I think the number one is that moment when you make that decision to say this is unacceptable. You get up and walk away. That's a powerful thing, and that will change the dynamic. And there's the very real possibility they'll just never talk to you again, and that's not
Well,
necessarily a bad thing.
I was going to say, I mean, that's what happened to me. And, you know, Neuro was going to come on. Neuro is, I, I don't want to tell that story, but I understand. Like, I mean, uh, it's just so difficult, because I did. I mean, by coming on here and
Yeah,
talking the way that I am, I did. I lost my family because of it. But if our relationship was that tenuous to begin with, oh,
you didn't
well,
lose
I
it.
mean,
They made the choice. They made the choice, not you. I mean, your ability to have a relationship with your family depended on you not telling the truth about your life.
exactly.
And then
Exactly.
that's on them. It's on them. And that's the other thing about standing up and walking away. If they decide not to talk to you, that's their choice. They're the ones who made that choice. And that's another thing that's you really have to remind yourself of that. Even now I can forget that. But the people that aren't in my life now, they made that choice. They didn't want to practice accountability. They didn't want to listen to me when I said this behavior is hurtful. It's
Yeah,
hurtful. You have to stop. And if they're not going to stop, you're not going to be around them. I mean, you have to stand up to your bullies, and your bullies are sometimes your family. And they're the most awful bullies because they know all your secrets and they know all the buttons to push. They know where you're vulnerable. And so
exactly.
protect yourself. Everybody, please protect yourself because you deserve to be happy this holiday season. You deserve to be the best possible person you can be for your kids, and because your kids are not, they come into this world beautiful and pure and wonderful. And that's what I thought. My
We
kids are
ruin
so
them.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just can't ruin them. I can't if I don't ruin them, and they keep teaching you. They teach and they keep rewarding you, especially if you model decency and you model accountability and you do all these things that the United States of America, the philosophy, the ideology of this country indoctrinates us not to do. So we have to reject all that and we have to be decent people. We have to embrace the way of integrity. And yeah, you might have one lonely Christmas and you might second guess yourself, but I promise you, if you keep taking steps down that road, you will feel so much better than you ever thought was possible. So,
I think so too. And I'm excited to see who all's going to be on here on Christmas Day because, yeah, I'm probably going to be alone on Christmas Day. So I wanted to reach you guys, though. Psychology Today does have eight things to do for your for surviving. And one of them is stocking up on self care. And, a good thing about it is even if you don't have a therapist, there's a lot of great online therapy that you could probably even get on Christmas Day if you're having some sort of like, upsetting moment or whatever. I'm sure you could find somebody online. There's tons of, hey, you can call me, call, DM me, we'll chat. I mean, I've got lots of therapeutic techniques we could chat about. It says to plan ahead for the communication that you're going to have with your family, like know the conversations that you should avoid. I think that's a good one. Like for
I
my
wouldn't
family, would
avoid it
definitely
though.
be
I lean into
politics.
it hard. It's I'm going to talk about this shit. That's who I am. I talk about this. It's like I,
I like
you know,
that
we
about
can
you,
agree to
Walter.
disagree. You don't like the stuff I want to talk about. That's fine. But if you push it, treat me with empathy though. If you push too hard, I might just be more hardwired into my beliefs. Use all their lines against them. They really hate that. I like that
True.
a lot. No.
Here, let me put the link in here, you guys.
You
Um,
might have to
th-
practice. Practice you know what
yeah,
actually helps? Go for a walk in the woods and just practice what you want to say and unapologetically say it. I mean, if these people are racists and if they support pedophiles, they're awful
and
people. I
pedophile.
mean, you shouldn't be quiet about that. You know, we have to talk about those things. Think of the kids.
Well,
Think of the kids.
you know, and the thing is, they'll deny the whole pedophilia. It's like it's all propaganda or something. But no, it isn't.
Bring Virginia
Uh,
Giuffre's book and read Virginia Giuffre's book. I mean, just have it with you. Hold it. Here's her book. This is what she wrote. Have her recordings. Yeah.
the thing that was released today about the woman whose head was blown off. Yeah, that might be a good one to take with you. Okay, anyway, this is my strategy when I was like in my abusive like family deal is have a job. I was always in the kitchen cleaning or cooking and I'm
Okay.
pretending to be really busy doing something, scrubbing that one brown spot on the floor. I'd be there for 3 hours. Yeah, that was the way I handled it. That's the other one. Have a job. And then it says set boundaries, which was the very first thing that Walter said when we started this conversation. It's you've got to have your boundaries, you know uh, don't let people cross those boundaries. And when they do, have your escape plan. You've got to go to the store. Oh, you ran out of tampons. I don't know. I've got my show to watch. Whatever. Have your car. Have your escape plan.
Yeah.
Leave.
Somebody who calls you, somebody calls you 10 minutes in just to ask if it's okay. Oh, I got to go. It's a work emergency.
Gotta
Yeah. Yeah.
set your alarm and be like, oh, somebody called me. I gotta go. Know what you expect. That's another thing. Some don't have a lot of fantasies about what you think. This is another strategy that I would use. I would imagine the worst case scenario, like just our plan for the worst case scenario. And then I'd always end up be sort of pleasant surprise. But because if you imagine the worst thing that's going to happen, all the worst things that can happen, and then if they don't happen, you're always like, oh, then that wasn't so bad. The escape plan. Here's one. Yeah, escape plan. Wait, where am I? And then know it's okay just not to go, which we were just talking about. If you don't
Yeah.
want to go and you think it's going to be too much drama, don't even go at all. And then know you're not alone. And like I said, I'll be here on Christmas. I'll probably come on live, and certainly you can DM me if you guys are whatever. I'm happy to chat with whoever. if,
Yeah. Well,
if
I
you
would
if
just
you're
say,
not a left harness imitator,
well, I would say
left
too, just,
harness imitators love to DM me. I don't get it.
oh, really? Like people with fake
Oh yeah,
profiles? Oh,
left
okay.
harness 12987 412. Yeah, he's up in my DMs this morning, and yeah, I don't understand. I'm like, I actually know Lev, so yeah,
Yeah. Be
no,
careful
who are
about those.
you? Yeah, I'm like, that's psychotic. Just be yourself, please. Like,
Oh,
what are you
oh,
doing?
somebody did that. Somebody did that to me too. They added a two to the end of my profile, and so then they're gonna ask for money or whatever. So yeah, it's awful. It's just cloning. It's called cloning. It's a way of scamming people. It's common. But I
Well,
want to
shoot,
get back to
Walter,
that last.
that's cool. I didn't know you were that popular that people want to be
Yeah,
you.
I
That's really
guess.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. I was so afraid. I didn't want anybody who reads my stuff to be taken in. Hello, everybody. It's nice that you come in. But I want to emphasize that point though. That moment when you're sitting at the table and just that power of I'm leaving. And once you make that choice, you get up and leave and see what happens. You're probably resisting it because you know nobody's going to come after you. But what's the point of having that relationship? If you know that if you stand up and leave, that's going to be the end, what are you getting out of that relationship anyway? Why are you maintaining it? And you're putting so much energy into those relationships. If they're not people who are
Exactly.
going to meet you in the middle, why are you doing that? And just I've seen people, the agony they go through this whole month. They've been dreading these holiday gatherings for months. They've been grinding their teeth down and all these preparations, like you say, hide in the kitchen. I mean, where's the dignity in that? If you can't go into a room and be treated with dignity, there's no point in being there. There's not. And I think a lot of our society, we keep trying to preserve. Well, let's preserve it. You know what? These systems have to be destroyed. They have to be, the system of white supremacy has to be obliterated. I don't care how old somebody is. If they're racist, they can't act like that. It'll take them 2 or 3 months of hard work to use their conscious mind to reprogram themselves. If you're going to be an enabler and hide from their racism, we're going to end up with what the situation we have now. I mean, things are never going to get better. So I just encourage people, that power is intoxicating when you finally say, no, God damn it, these are my values. This is my integrity. This is how I'll be treated. I'm not going to sit here and allow people to be hateful against children or the LGBTQ plus community or any of the things that they hate. I'm not going to allow it. You can't do it in my presence. And that'll change the world. It really honestly will. And if it
I
takes a
think you're
holiday
right
gathering, yeah, and it really, so just power to everybody, power. And you'll
because
feel so
I
much.
think
You might at first you'll tremble. It's going to be a hard moment. Getting up, I'm going. You're going to be furious. You're going to have all these emotions boiling up. Process that. Give yourself a little bit of time, and you're welcome to the real version of you that you've always wanted to be. And the good people will come back. And
yeah, I have a sense of freedom now after telling them exactly like what are you doing? This is so not manly what you're doing.
yeah,
Because it's the men in my family. They're I'll just be honest. The men in my family owe me money, and they're using
sure.
politics as an excuse not to pay me back. And
Lawyer up, lawyer
seriously,
up. I mean, why would you not
that's
lawyer up?
kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I'm
Do
gonna have
it.
to sue my family. Yeah, it sucks, but oh
Well,
well. Well, I didn't break the law with you. That's another thing with personality disorder is what I'm seeing this abuse. The Constitution is like my best friend. I cannot imagine a world in a fascist anything because that's how I know when someone's abusing me if they're breaking the law or if they're breaking some really severe ethical code. You know,
yeah,
but it's usually the law with me by the time I'm like, God, this person is really abusing me.
yeah. And
I can
Tamara
take
made
them
a
to
great
court.
comment.
Oh,
Oh, well, I mean, that's what it's there for. But Tamara made a great comment and says you can't change anyone. And yeah, I mean, but but we also can't allow other people to make us live a life that's not our authentic life, right? And I mean, take the power of yourself. And yeah, it is important because I mean, it's up to them to decide whether you mean enough to them for them to listen to your boundaries and be respectful human beings and accept who you are. And if they're not gonna, you just have to let them go and don't feel bad about it because it's not you that made that choice again. It is them that made that choice. They're the ones that left your life. It wasn't you. You just lived who you are. You showed who you were. You can't say that enough times. It needs to be said over and over again.
but at the same time, like the values that I know are right or wrong was taught to me by my own family. So if they're not even doing the values that they taught me, then we have a pretty serious issue going on. You
That
know,
is that's a fascinating concept because how can we live in this? Because we know how we're supposed to act. All the things are out there, and yet this mechanism exists to create all these exceptions. And it's just like, you're supposed to give to the poor, except, and then they create all these things so people can live with this delusion that they're good people, even though they're violating every ethical rule that they've taught themselves to believe. And just bringing that up, it can be an interesting conversation starter with some people. But yeah, I mean, it might come down to just standing up and leaving, and that power is tremendous. Yeah.
I think I agree. I mean, like I said, I wanted to come on here and tell everybody to like go, power it out with your family. But at the same time, I agree. I completely agree with Walter. And I think that that's probably the most healthy approach is what Walter's saying. And kind of these strategies are more for just keeping the peace. But the
Yeah. No,
reality
it's
is that
true.
because we have been so compliant. And
Yeah.
like I'm doing this research right now, this whole Kushner thing that I was doing, you guys, it's God, it is getting really crazy. But the reason Russia has been engaged in the United States politics for a long time. And the reason what it looks like is that the Democrats haven't said anything because they've been getting large amounts of money from Russian oligarchs.
Yeah.
So people have just been nobody's standing up for our country and our constitution and our belief system. Everyone's just sort of smiling and nodding and going along, and that is why we're here. Everybody's been so damn complacent, and so and Walter, you're correct, and that's why I'm here because I'm like, if we're watching this happen with the president, we can see it in our own family, and it's got to start with our family. So we've got to stand up to these people
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
microcosm,
Yep.
in the
And
microcosm.
complying with a bully is never going to be enough. They're always going to ask more. They're always going to push for more. It's not going to end. It just is not. And so, like, preserving the peace is just not possible because you're not going to know peace until you're dead, and your life is gone. And that's really the fact of it. I mean, they're crossing these boundaries. They're pushing and pushing, trying to get more every single time because there's a hole inside their soul that can never be filled. These billionaires that have to take and take because they can't create, and we have to stand up. They have to be stopped. They just have to be stopped. So please, and I always tell people, it's like, just take care of yourself, please, people. You are worth it. You deserve to be treated better than people are being treated now. You all do. You all do. Don't listen to the lies. They try to break everybody down. We have to build people up.
PJ, yeah, go to there. If you like the person from the dog park, this is where I have all my political conversations is at the dog park. I have a feeling that PJ and I would be friends if we lived near the same dog park. Well, we're friends anyway, right, PJ? Anyway, yeah, I would go if it's just some kind of semi stranger invited me over. Yeah, yeah, why not, right?
Yeah. But Joe just said, I'm pissed though. There's so many of them. And that's another really interesting comment because it feels impossible what we're up against. But the reality is, we don't have to change everybody's hearts. It's like what happened? Something.
That wine tastes terrible. Yeah.
Oh, we don't have to change everybody's hearts. You only have to change like 1 or 2% of the population, and you have radical change then. And it starts to build. You get that reaction. So it's not upon us to change everybody. Just do one kind act. Stand up for your integrity today. That really is the pathway here because they've got us just browbeaten where we feel hopeless. That doesn't help, and we feel like we're powerless. All we have to do is speak. All we have to do is live in accordance with our values. What you're doing is enough. What you feel comfortable doing is enough. Don't self-recriminate. And I guess yeah, I've kind of been talking tough, but at the same time, if you're in that position where it's like, I want to go to my family day and I'm going to take this strategy where I just find it tense, that's okay too. If that's what you feel is the right thing for you to do that too. I do just want to give people permission to stand up for their values. I don't want to like criticize people. Everybody's in a different position. And what you're doing is enough. So feel good about yourself. Always start with there. Keep building on that. Find loving communities that support you because you deserve that, and just don't let all this external pressure determine, you know, force you to live something other than the life that you know is your calling. Because you're not going to be happy unless you're true to yourself. I mean, we all know that to be true too. And so, but it's like, it is
Well,
calm.
it's important to me. It's important to, when you're presented with a stressor, there's fight or flight, but there's another one. And that was sort of where I was with my family, paralyzed middle, where you
Yeah.
don't want to run and you don't want to fight. So you're just like, that's the
Yeah.
worst place to be. So yeah, I would at least fight or leave. Fight it out or leave or do both. But staying paralyzed and doing nothing is we can't afford to do that right now.
Yeah.
We can't afford
Yeah,
that.
I mean, take the chance. Let's do something better. Take the risk. Ask the person out you've had a crush on. I mean, then and then you're not obsessing over it. It's like the things it might have been is the saddest of all words, as they say.
Oh,
And you only
true.
get one life. So do the things that make you feel like it's the right thing. Like the thing that makes you feel satisfied and comforted. And we always know what that right thing is deep down within us. We just have to get used to listening to it again. And just to understand, too, there's all these external pressures to make us do something or another. We have excuses. We have to make a deal with the devil, you know. We have to vote for the lesser of two evils. All this bullshit. Wouldn't it be nice to just boldly and shamelessly do what you knew to be right, just for a change, just for something different? And so that's what I encourage everybody to do this holiday season. Somebody starts saying something bad, and why shouldn't you say, nope, actually, I think that's bullshit what you just said. And by the way, you owe me some money. Say that too.
Yeah, like I said, we're not even talking. I think it just needs to, hey, you're going to court. We'll see you in court. Yeah, see you
Uh,
in court. Uh, wow, Walter, this has been amazing. I'm so, so happy you came on. And you guys, I always want to tell you, like, especially that we're in the end of the year and I came here in January. This has been the most amazing supportive community. Without the support that I've gotten here, I wouldn't have been able to stand up to my family. And so finding somebody like Walter and reading his work, like when I first got over here, I immediately was like, where have these people been my whole life? So I'm so grateful for everybody in here. I cannot tell you, really.
oh,
Thank you.
it's Yeah, and I feel the same way, and it's been so wonderful meeting everybody. And keep bringing more people, like people from your community. Bring them onto Substack. The more we can grow here, the better. And people just need to hear these messages because it's not anywhere in the mainstream media. I mean, the mainstream media has been all bought up by the same corrupt entities that control the government. So you have to push people away from that. There is another way to do things. There's no reason to feel hopeless. And I keep telling people the regime has already hit its moment of peak power. You know, they are losing power. We just have to
Do
keep
they?
going. Yep, I believe that. I believe that firmly. They're losing power. It's eroding. They're still going to be desperate, but more and more people are waking up. And once the truth has been seen, it can't be unseen. More and people are having their breaking point. And so just bring people on here, but we can't settle. That's the other thing, because we're going to hit a pivot moment. When they realize they've lost, the bully then tries to make friends. They love bomb then. And at that point, and then there'll be all these encouragements from the media. Oh, we have to work with them. We have to understand their point of view. And it's like, hell no. Now is our time to
Tucker
do what we've always
Carlson.
known to be right and have the courage to do that. And it's going to always seem like it's easier to go back to this hostile situation that never worked. We all have to find the courage to just demand a better future that's different. And so it's going to be a little bit scary, but I promise you it can't be worse than it's been. So find that courage and find that conviction. Yeah, and let's go forward and just believe it can be better because it can be. I know it can be. I've experienced it in my life. I know other people can too.
I think the best part of all this crap that's happening is all the change is going to come when it's over. I mean, this is
Yeah.
motivation for a lot of good change.
We got to make it
So,
happen though, because like I said, there will be temptation to not go as far as it could, and we really have to push. Yep, that's nice, Nikki.
y'all are
Ah,
so sweet. Thank you, Nikki. Okay, well, I'm probably going to pop on Thursday, but I don't know by myself. If somebody else wants to come on, DM me. I'll be around.
okay, well that's perfect. Well, thanks so much for being on here. It's nice to see all the wonderful people, and I hope you said some helpful things. And yeah, I mean, send a message if you're having a hard time. I answer my messages. I'm not the biggest
Oh, great.
creator on here, so the support is always really wonderful. And I do try to talk to people, especially if you're in need. I might not get back to you on Christmas, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And it's just like, yeah, the communication helps so much. So just keep it going, keep it rolling, and be kind to yourself this Christmas, this holiday season, everybody.
Yeah, you guys check out Walter's work too. You're gonna love it. He just has he's the best. I love his writing. You're just gonna dig it
Thank,
if you haven't checked out his work yet.
that's so nice of you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Walter. All right, you guys. Well, then I'll see you on Thursday. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Best to you all. Thanks, Kat.
Bye, y'all. Thank you, Walter, so much. Bye, y'all.